Many people come into the clinic into a hearing test saying, I can hear people talking, I just can't understand them. And that sentence is actually key to understanding hearing properly. Because hearing and understanding are not the same thing. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you the difference and how these processes work. Welcome to Earman Dan. If you're new here, my name is Daniel and a very warm welcome. I'm a hearing care professional and the owner of Ear Studio in Castle Hill in Sydney. But more importantly, I spend my days helping people, not just to hear better, but actually to understand better and leave behind the challenges of hearing loss. And in this channel, I break down how hearing really works, how the hearing care landscape looks in Australia, and what you can do to get the best possible outcome. Now, I invite you to follow along in this journey. Now, we may casually say, sorry, I couldn't hear you, but what we actually meant is, I could hear you were saying something, but I couldn't understand every word of it. Hearing is just the detection of a sound. That's it. Catching a sound is the ear's job. Understanding is what the brain does with that sound that the ear has caught. You can think of hearing as the ears just collecting information and understanding of the brain basically making sense of it and sorting it all out. All the information that's been collected will be sorted through and processed. And it's entirely possible to detect some sounds perfectly well and still struggle to understand speech. And that's especially the case in background noise, as I'm sure you well know. Most people experience it. And that is why many people are saying things like, I can hear you, but it's not clear, or it's like, I can't understand people because they all mumble. I hear the noise, but I can't pick out the words of it. And what's happening here may not just be an ear issue. It may also be a processing issue on brain level. You know, when sound enters the ear, in simple terms, it's converted into electrical signals and sent to the brain. There's actually an earlier video where I've explained that in more detail. The brain then has to organize those signals, separate speech from noise, and then attach meaning to those signals, if they're speech, for example, or if they are warning noises. And all of that needs to happen in real time, and that process is incredibly complex. And like any complex system, I'm sure you can relate, it relies on regular and accurate input. So again, like let's go in the kitchen cooking. If you follow a recipe over and over again very regularly, it's very easy for you to follow that and you've got like a routine to that. But let's assume for just a moment that hearing loss is only an ear issue, such as a mild hearing loss. Some parts of the speech are not detected by the ear, so the brain doesn't have them available to make sense of them. And in that case, we could just fit a hearing aid and make things louder in those areas, add the remaining sounds, and all will be fine. But in most cases, that's really not the case. In most situations, hearing loss or the hearing and communication challenges are a combination of a hearing and a processing issue. And this is where the concept of auditory deprivation becomes really important. When hearing loss develops, and that is normally the case over many years, like it's in most cases not quick, sometimes it is, but mostly it's a very gradual process. The brain starts receiving less and less detailed sound information, and certain speech sounds become softer or distorted, and the brain doesn't have them available. Especially in high-frequency sounds in particular, they often disappear first, and over time, the brain kind of receives fewer opportunities to process these sounds accurately, like you stop cooking a certain recipe. And then just like a muscle that isn't used, the brain's ability to interpret that sound, those sounds, that can weaken. And that is called auditory deprivation. It doesn't happen overnight, that's the good news. It develops slowly, often without people realizing it over like 2 or 3 decades. And this is why some people can say, I've managed fine without hearing aids for like 10, 15 years. Yes, they've managed to hear sounds, and they got by with lip reading, guessing the context in conversations, and employing like compensatory strategies. But the brain still may have slowly lost the efficiency in understanding certain sounds and processing them. Now, just sticking a hearing aid in the ear alone is not going to be effective. You can hear those sounds again, but you still can't understand them clearly because the brain just can't process them anymore. The brain has forgotten how to do that. So it needs to be a process of auditory rehabilitation training to kind of relearn those. And here's the important part and the hopeful part. The brain is very adaptable. When we restore access to sounds and follow that process, doing that properly, then the brain can mostly relearn how to process sounds. This is where, for example, auditory training comes in. Auditory training isn't about making sounds louder. The hearing aid would be doing that. But it's about helping the brain to relearn how to interpret sound through structured listening, repetition, and guided exposure. The brain starts to separate background noise from speech more efficiently. It starts recognizing speech patterns and reduce the listening effort and fatigue that you may notice and encounter, especially in social situations where you have 8 to 10 people around the table. Now that process takes time. And that's why hearing care is not a one-appointment solution, or at least it shouldn't be. And that's why people often notice improvements in understanding weeks or months after starting the treatment process. It's not just day one that kind of increases it and always stays there. No, we work with you over a few weeks to get the hearing aid okay, that is really 100%. And then over time, the brain actually continues to adapt to those sounds. Many people say it takes around 6 to 12 months for full adaptation. It's much quicker in the beginning phase where you get 80% of it, but then it still continues to improve over time. Now, hearing devices obviously play an important role here. They provide the brain, so to speak, with access to sound, which the ears can't do themselves anymore. But as we discussed now, the access alone isn't enough. The brain still needs that time and support and that training to make sense of it. And that's also why two people with the same hearing loss and even with the same hearing devices can have very different experiences. One person may feel overwhelmed and frustrated, while another may adapt smoothly and notices steady improvements. The difference is often not the hearing device. It's the process that was used during their fitting and how much time the audiologist or hearing care professional took to make sure that the patient gets the best results. And how much of that auditory training, for example, was implemented. Understanding the difference between hearing and understanding is actually crucial, because successful hearing care isn't just about hearing sounds again. It's restoring the ability of the brain to make sense of them. In the next video, we'll talk about how that understanding shapes the way hearing care should be delivered, and why individualized hearing care matters far more than the hearing device itself. Until the next video, I wish you all the best and bye-bye.